You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk.
Number 284.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 284 on the Outdoor Station. Yes, 284, so that means there's only 16 to go before the big 300. And 300 seems to be a big figure in my mind at the moment, wondering what we're going to do. We've already had some emails, some suggestions from people, which I'll come on to shortly. And it's quite interesting, the range of listeners and how much enjoyment people are getting from these podcasts and touching on a whole variety of different aspects as we're able to. I wish we had the budget to do more exotic and wild and interesting things, but we're doing our best on that score. It's mid-November as I record this now, and the weather is certainly very autumnal. The nights have well and truly drawn in. It's sort of dark at 3:30, 4 o'clock-ish, depending where you are in the country. And the weather forecast this weekend isn't very good. The wind has taken all the leaves off the trees, certainly in this area. We've had a few days of rain, and the forecast for the north of England isn't good at all. And in fact, I think it's already making the international news, the amount of rain it's going to get. But I think there's rumoured or forecast 5 inches of rain in a very, very short period of time, which once again makes us wonder about the old global warming and the environmental situation and so on. And there seem to be two camps regarding the global warming theories. You heard Rose and I mention the 350 day and the pressure they're trying to put onto the politicians to sort of come up with some form of action, as opposed to discussing to agree to discuss action. Let's actually get on with it, shall we? And some of the comments I put on different forums and so on I've got had different types of responses. Some people seem to believe that we're doomed, and the way that we're treating the planet and the amount of people and the amount of energy that we're drawing is actually going to bring us to a short end, which is sort of where my feelings are at the moment, I have to say. And there's the other camp that believes that it's perfectly normal and nature will take its course, and global warming and all the rest of it is all part and parcel of it, and we shouldn't make such a big fuss. But sitting in the camp of the first parts, thinking about the energy consumption that we go into, and of course, as outdoor enthusiasts, no matter what your enthusiastic topic is, we all rely on the petrochemical industry. You think of the clothing, the insulations, the hard fabrics, the hard materials, the plastics, and so on. It's a bit of a difficult one, isn't it? You sort of got one foot in the I want to be sort of environmentally friendly, and then the other foot is I actually like this gear, and all the gear performs very, very well, and you want to get out and about and use it. Anyway, to ease our guilt, perhaps, there is one company that has changed their product range for 2010, and actually developed all the material they use in their products is what they call 100% Tier 1 recycled nylon fabrics. And would you believe that is Golite? Golite have put a real big flag in the ground to flag this up, and their fabrics have changed slightly, but they still do the same performance and so on. So in this podcast, Roman, when he was over in Germany, spoke to Andy Burgess from Golite about some of the new products and also the fabrics and what their intentions were. And then as their strapline has developed, it's Go Lighter on the planet, and we'll hear more about that a bit later on. Also, the destination show is looming in, let's say, February and March. February in London and March in Birmingham. And Andy and I went to the one in Birmingham at the beginning part of this year. You've already heard various interviews that we did there with people with different destinations. So it'll be interesting to go to that one next year and see exactly what's changed, again from an environmental point of view, how much that's affected the travel industry, and also from a consumer point of view, find out what is up and coming if we can. But Andy and I sat down during that show and had a bit of a reprise really, and discussed some of the our thoughts on the presentation and the size of the show and the sort of people that were there and so on. So perhaps that you might find that interesting, and possibly if the show is near you, or is at Earl's Court in February and the Birmingham NEC in March, it might be worthwhile popping along. But first, another show that we went to was the Focus show, the camera show, again at the NEC, beginning of the year. And one of the interviews that we hadn't got round to releasing was one Andy did with Simon Street from Expression Media. And they handle a cataloguing tool which helps you make sense of your ever-growing range of digital outdoor photography. So Andy sat down with him and had a demonstration with some of the software there, and here's Simon to tell you all about it.
One of the great things about digital photography, of course, is that once you book the camera, there's no more film costs, so you can take as many images as you like, and providing you've got the disk space, you can keep them. And that's where the problems come in, because if you're starting off in any way as a keen enthusiast taking a lot of photographs, you'll soon lose track of your images. Now, there's a whole series of software programs that are around now that help you catalogue and not lose those files. And perhaps one of the market leaders is Expression Media, which is a Microsoft product. And I've got Simon here who's going to tell us a bit about it. So Simon, somebody who's suddenly taking a lot of photographs, I mean, what's the big benefit of using a program like Expression Media?
Well, this is one of the big issues in the industry over the last few years, and even for the amateur and the professional, is that from moving from film to digital, just the sheer volume of files has gone from just the 24 that you might shoot on a roll of film to the hundreds and thousands that you can rattle off on a digital camera. So it's really the volume of files and the variety of files that we now deal with on our computers that can be a challenge to anybody. And keeping organised, being efficient, but also using those files productively and creatively is what a bit of software like Expression Media can do for you.
Now, this is what the photo magazines and the professionals call workflow, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. People talk about workflow, and really what we're talking about is how you go from the skill and expertise that you apply as a photographer to the work that you do on the computer. And for me, workflow is using the bit of the software. I don't think personally there's one panacea and one program that does it all. And my personal view is that you will use a range of programs that each have an expertise in a particular area. Expression Media is what we call a digital asset management solution. And really its expertise is working with large volumes of files productively and creatively. And also it's extremely strong on metadata. What we mean by metadata are all the hidden attributes of a file that are present when you take a digital picture. You've obviously got the EXIF information, which is all the details about the shot as was taken, the capture date, the aperture, and this kind of information. And then there's a whole range of annotations which exist, and they're formally specified. So that data can be worked with, and you can also add to that data. So you can add your keywords, captions, comments, your authorship, your copyright information, and that information can be saved within the files. And that's what a tool like Expression Media can do. So in terms of workflow, typically you can shoot tethered with a program like Capture One, or you can take your memory card into that kind of software, do your edits, your enhancements in those programs, and then when you're outputting those files and your original raws can be brought into this one environment called Expression Media.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Suppose I've been out somewhere, maybe hill walking for a couple of days. I've got a load of photographs there. I upload them into a file on my hard drive. So what do I do from there? Take me through the process from that point.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of RAWs on our hard drive. The most simple thing to do would be to open Expression Media, and that would present to you a catalogue. We call a catalogue, it's just a blank canvas really. And you can simply drag and drop your files into that catalogue. What it does is to build what I would describe as a visual database. It builds thumbnails of those files, it extracts the metadata from those files, and importantly it notes the location. So it does a very small amount of work, and as a result it's incredibly fast. It doesn't copy the files, and that's a crucial thing. It's a reference model where it notes the location. So once you've got those files in, then you're in a pole position to start working with them, and then you can go through the processes of review and selection. So if you want to review your files and select your favorites, ones that you may be using or ones that you're going to reject, you can do that very easily in the software using either the thumbnails or full screen views of the files, and you can tag them. Either tag them with the standard IPTC data ratings or color labels.
So I might, let's say I've been in Snowdonia for a couple of days, I might tag all of them with Snowdonia, or I might have a catalogue called Snowdonia, and then I might individually tag them depending on maybe an individual mountain or village or location or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the workflow that you do, that you go through your files, annotating them with these kind of important information, these keywords and these annotations.
And of course the great thing about that is that it's reasonably easy to do, but unless you start doing that reasonably early on, as more and more photographs you get, the more of a nightmare it is. And this, we've got the program in front of us, the screen is very crisp and clear. You can change the size of the thumbnails there, yeah. Can't you?
And I think
but that's not all, is it? You can actually edit, you can manipulate images to some extent in the program as well.
Yes, of course. I mean, because we work with a wide range of file formats, we've got the support for, I think, 10 camera manufacturers' file formats, as well as other media formats. But I just want to take you back, Andy, a second. Probably one of the important things to say is that once you've done that import and you've added your annotations, that information is permanently stored in the catalogue. So when you open the software back up a few days later, you don't have to re-index or re-catalogue these files. It's a permanent record, and that record can actually be taken even with you away from the original files, and you can carry on annotating. But once we've got that data, we can do useful things for it. We can obviously search over that metadata, searching over keywords, over Snowdonia to find particular pictures that you've tagged like that. But then you can do productive and creative things with it. You can export to XML. It's not XML, we can export to XML actually, all the metadata. But you can export to HTML. You can create contact sheets. You can run slideshows, and because we support audio formats and video formats, you can add that into your slideshow, which ultimately could be burnt to a DVD. So it's actually a very rich environment that allows not just to do a cataloguing and an organising tool, it actually allows you to do more to leverage those files and present them publicly, and often to your clients in professional ways.
Now, because it's not actually holding the original file in the database itself, you can do some basic editing in Expression Media itself, but you can also quick and easily go and edit in something like Photoshop or Capture One, can't you? And then it automatically returns you back into Expression Media. So that sounds a bit magical. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Andy. And I'm sorry I didn't answer the last question particularly well, because you asked me about editing. Because let's start at the beginning. If you have your RAWs in Expression Media, it has a range of tools where you can reprocess out those RAWs to other file formats like JPEG and TIFF, and downsize them, resize them, this sort of thing. But also it allows you to take those files to other applications. And it's as simple as highlighting one or many files, going to the toolbar and saying open with this helper application, and then Expression Media will hand over those files to that other application.
And when it brings it all back again, it's very easy, isn't it, to batch change files. So, for example, I might want to rename them all, Snowdonia Easter 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll automatically do that for me. I mean, some of these things, or if I wanted to export a whole selection, convert a whole section in one go to JPEG, it will do that for me as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's the batch processing that really starts leveraging, the power of the software, because it can deal with very large volumes of files. We're talking in the thousands, the tens of files in a single catalog. You can take 10 or 1,000 or 10,000 of those files and perform a single operation, such as batch renaming, as such converting from a RAW to a JPEG or a TIFF. So that is a very powerful feature. But also you can logically organize and then work with different sets. You can have more than one catalog. Catalog is just a document that you save, like a Word or an Excel file. So you can be very organized over those files as well as be productive with them.
Okay, now all of the information about Expression Media is on the web, isn't it? If you put Expression Media into Google or you look up Microsoft's site, I think you can also download it and play with it for a while, can't you, with a free demo?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a free demo of Expression Media. I believe it's a 30-day free trial, and probably the best URL to try and get that is microsoft.com/ProPhoto, and then you'll find a range of professional photography information, and including the link to go and download Expression Media to trial the software.
Well, thanks very much for that, Simon. I think if you're at all serious about your photography, you'll have amassed many images, and this really is a good investment quite early on, because simply it saves you getting lost.
It's a great tool for working with large volumes of files. It's a very cheap product comparatively, and once you understand the way it works as a reference model, it becomes an incredibly powerful tool, and hopefully a very important part of the workflow.
One thing perhaps we should add that I've certainly found very useful is that if you manipulate all your files constantly from in the program, let's say we buy a new external hard drive or something, we want to move the location of our files, so long as we do that from within Expression Media itself, which is pretty straightforward, all of those catalogues remain valid, don't they? You're not going to be losing some of those key photos. No,
absolutely, and that is the trick that Expression Media is all about, where your files are, and it does allow you, as you say, to move files within the program around the file system and onto other drives. So it's got backup functions, and it can remember that you've done that backup, so it knows that those files are now offline on a DVD or off on another hard drive that may not be connected. So absolutely, I think that's a very good point.
And the website, again, is microsoft.com/ProPhoto, and hopefully that'll help sort out, if you're anything like me, hundreds, if not thousands, of outdoor images, which are slowly chocking up the hard drives. And thankfully they're coming down in price, which is a good thing. Let's move on to some feedback letters. I do enjoy getting feedback from people. It's sometimes it's I've probably mentioned it before, I know, but it seems a bit of a lonely existence to be sitting in a room sometimes, working away on editing and so on, just wondering who's listening to it and if they're enjoying it. So it's always nice to get comments from people, and they're full of variety and from all over the world. So the first is from Brent Clark. Just wanted to show my appreciation for the excellent podcasting site. I loved it so much I went out and got myself an iPod. Like a lot of people, I now listen to your podcasts while in the outdoors myself. The features, and especially the TGO Challenge material, are an inspiration. And most of your gear is okay too. Thanks, and keep up the good work, and definitely more podcasts on multi-days out, please. Maybe abroad in the Alps. That's an area I'll be looking into, as well as everyone's favourite, Scotland. Thank you very much for that, Brent. And people who know me know that I would love to go off and do a series of podcasts, if only I had A, the time, and B, the money. Moving on. Striking hard at the heart of supporting women, Flora Marriott. One more thing I forgot to add when commenting my last time was more Shirley in the podcast, please. Well done, Shirley. Come on, get yourself together now. Produce some more stuff for us. Chris and Ingrid. Hi, Bob and Rose. Sorry we missed your phone call. We were out gadding about in the lakes. Well done for competing in the OMM. Bit embarrassing, but there you go. Thanks for all the stuff. Love the podcast and well done. Looking forward to the next instalments. Be in touch soon, Chris and Ingrid. Alfred Wasserman. Your video casts are superb. They're very informative and simultaneously very entertaining. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Alfred. Graham Bullock downloaded all of your podcasts recently. All 283 of them. And boy, are my days at work so much more enjoyable. Well, thank you, Graham. And finally, John Horner, a whole podcast devoted to gear equals heaven. Thanks, Bob, thanks, Bob. For the 300th podcast, how about a Bob and Andy big adventure to mid-Wales? Thanks, John. Well, mid-Wales, the Alps, anywhere, mainland Europe, I'm open for anything, but as mentioned before, sadly, we've also got a business to run, and it's quite difficult to squeeze it all in. Producing these, which I do love, it's part of my creative vent to produce these sort of things. Is one hand, and on the other hand, we have to obviously, like everybody else, get by. But talking about destinations and looking for places to go, one of the things we visited this year, Andy and I, was the destination show, the Times destination show at the NEC. And we went along really to see if we could find various places that could be of interest to fellow outdoors people wanting somewhere more affordable or more interesting or more quiet or whatever, less commercial to go and visit. But at the end of the show, we actually sat down and had a chat about the actual contents, the sort of size, some of the people we met and the way they were presenting themselves, because I think there was a bit of a confusion about who their actual customer base was and so on. So it wasn't the biggest show in the world, but it was something, one offering something different. And depending on your budget, I'm sure there was something there. Now, I'm just doing this to mention the fact that the next year's, the 2010 show, is at the Earl's Court in 4th to the 7th of February, and back at the NEC again on the 5th to the 7th of March. And we'll probably be going along to that one again. Anyway, here's Andy and I chewing the fat over a cup of coffee.
If you have any feedback, questions or suggestions, why not drop us a line, either on Facebook or directly to our email address, info@theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
Bringing you more about the outdoors world.
Well, it's a considerably smaller show than I anticipated it being. I thought it'd be a much bigger show than this. It's not even one hall, it's half a hall. And also the range of people of here. You've certainly got the sort of the upper end of the market, the financial market, and you've got the smaller independent tourist offices here, which is good to see. They're very, very helpful. From our point of view, I found that the biggest surprise is the amount of people that hide behind PR companies. Actually, you're here to talk about the destinations and the various things you can do when you get to that particular country or area or whatever. And yet, when we wanted to have a chat with them about it and to promote it for them or help them promote it, they actually sort of deferred to the PR people, of course, who aren't here at the time. Yeah, I've been to one or two stands which look really interesting. One of the companies that did bike excursions thought, yeah, that's good. I said, we're just the sales team. The marketing people aren't here. I'll give you a card and you can speak to them during the week, which kind of defeats the point of the exercise a bit. Yeah, I mean, I suppose, in some respects, it just goes to show you how big the industry is with certain players. I had the same thing with the Greek Islands Authority. I thought that would be a lovely piece to hear from people how easy it is to get round the islands, because I know that's still a popular destination for many people. And right down to the UK airports. Again, there must be lots of facilities and things and services available at airports that we could possibly use, but they were unable to pass that information on, which I thought was a great shame. Now, the undoubted stars of the show really are the small independents who are putting together these bespoke packages for people. And the thing that struck me about this year is that I've always assumed those are very expensive holidays, but actually, I suppose because they're very customisable, they're kind of much more within reach than I thought. Yeah, I think certainly in the past everybody's come to the conclusion that, myself included, that the sort of more prepared adventure holidays was actually going to cost you an awful lot more than doing things independently. But there's been a couple of people I've spoken to, and they've put the point across quite clearly that the fact that what they're doing is they're maximising people's time if they've got a 2 or 3 week break and they want to get the most from it. They want to have the feeling adventure, but they would like to have a little bit of a safety net, and they're still able to achieve their goal, have that freedom, have that independence, but at the same time seek advice locally and get the most from their time. It's the usual story when you go on holiday somewhere. You always find the best beach on the last day. At least they're preventing that, and you're getting the most from whichever area that you arrive at. Well, as you were saying to me earlier, the thing that is very striking is how small the world's becoming.
Yes, don't you get that feeling? I mean, you come to a place like this, and we've got sort of obviously UK destinations, we've got European destinations, certainly those on the fringes of the European destinations. But I mean, you got enthralled with a guy from Mongolia.
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, a country of 2.5 million people, half of them live in the city, and 3 times as big as France. There's a wilderness experience for you.
Funny enough, that's as soon as you mentioned you've spoken to them, that's one destination. I've got this dream for some reason of probably because of Rose of horse riding across Mongolia. I just have this idea of Genghis Khan and the Silk Road and all the rest of it all coming together, and I think that sort of wilderness could possibly be one of the last big remote wildernesses available to us. But I think to answer your previous question, it's definitely getting to be very, very easy to get anywhere in the world in a 12-hour flight or less. Of course, a lot of these places now, it's even more affordable than it has been due to the financial situation. Everybody still wants to bring that tourist income into the area. So there's a lot of bargains to be had, certainly.
And certainly I was struck by the South American contingent here because, I mean, adventure holidays in South America have been popular for some time, but there's still an awful lot of it to discover, and some of these smaller companies who are, beginning to reap real rewards by, taking to you those destinations that perhaps you'd not thought about before.
Well, I mean, traditionally these destinations have all been hunted out by the original backpackers. I mean, the backpackers going back to the 70s and 80s were finding all the Koh Samuis and the Tiaman Islands and the various places in Peru and so on, which were very simply a simple destination and didn't have much to offer, which was their appeal. I mean, in fact, when I first met Rose, she had caught a fisherman's boat across to Koh Samui off the coast of Thailand there, and she just stayed in a fisherman's hut. And when we went back a few years ago now, so 20 or 30 years later for her, she just didn't recognise the place. It was all concrete and commercialism. And of course, when that happens, the backpackers move on to find some other location which is offering something a bit different. And of course, what gets tied into that now is the adventure holiday activities, the pack rafting, the canoeing, the diving, all the various other things which I suppose the general outdoor enthusiast wants to try, and it's actually getting harder and harder to try these sort of activities in somewhere where safety is not necessarily paramount and the excitement is still maximum.
And of course, one of the good things, which has a kind of slightly sour side to it, is that people exploring the new destinations like Mongolia or wherever, of course, coming back, setting up destination holiday companies as a way of keeping themselves out there. Of course, they're opening up again, and I was struck by a couple of stands who are saying, well, they're now getting quite a lot of people coming to them who have loved the Himalaya, for example, but are now finding it's just a little bit too developed for them.
Yeah, responsible tourism, I think, is also quite rightly forming a key part of a lot of the stands here, and they're actually very discerning about the volume of people they're taking to the destinations, also, and what they're importing and exporting to those destinations. I think probably everybody listening to this has been somewhere where you feel like you're on a cattle market and you're just dragged in a bus to a particular location. All of a sudden you're just surrounded by people selling X, Y and Z, and you feel very awkward about the whole situation. But the other side of it is this could be the only time the local people get to make some serious money, and I think there is a very, very fine path to be trod, where if you are going to run a tourist service or a service for people, outdoors people, where you ensure that they don't have too much impact on the local culture, because that's the thing that you want to see, but at the same time they make a sensible contribution and leave it hopefully as they found it.
Well, we've certainly met some interesting people during the day, and there's some nice pieces for people to follow up and do the research on the web. Can you pick out one highlight?
My iPod Caravan. I think that Airstream Caravan.
Yeah, you do realise you're getting old, don't you, when you're sitting lusting over a caravan?
Yeah, it's probably not so much the caravan. It's just that, as Michael was saying in there, it's the design. It's just a piece of art. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I like a bit of style. And he was saying he's got some customers that have just bought it and put it by their pool. You know, it's that sort of thing, just to look at and polish and so on. What is fascinating, actually, when you sit here looking at the Airstream unit and so on, is they've actually fenced it off now because they were finding that people were walking around it, stroking it, and then they started hitting it for some reason to make sure it was substantial. And at 49,000 quid, it's not the sort
I think I'd want to hit it, yeah.
It's not the sort of thing you want dents in, so they fenced it off. But no, for me, that's probably visually a very attractive piece. But what about yourself?
I think for me the highlight in many ways was the canal tour operator. The notion of doing a city break on a canal barge I found quite exciting.
That's a nice idea, yeah.
Berlin, Amsterdam,
yeah.
and some of his new destinations, Poland for example. I thought, well, actually, there's something a little bit different.
Well, certainly there's a lot of times I've wanted to go to those particular locations, and you always end up with a pre-packaged weekend break in a poor 3-star accommodation, and everything's all rushing around. The idea of doing it on a boat would be absolutely fantastic, and I can think of a few events coming up for us and our group of friends where it would be super to nip across to France for a long weekend and spend it on a boat. Brilliant, yeah. Perfect.
I once had a tour of public housing development in Amsterdam. That's so sad I am. But being in Amsterdam, the tour was by boat, and it was a fantastic way of looking around. And you think, yeah, actually, doing the whole of Amsterdam on a canal barge, that's the way to go.
I think ultimately, at the end of the day, from this show and certainly our experiences and talking to people, and also with one eye on the financial situation, the credit crunch or whatever people want to call it, people are actually a lot more discerning now. They're looking deeper into how they're spending money, what are they getting for their money, but also where they're spending the money and the impact it's making. And I'm finding that perhaps these things have been there for a very long time, but they're actually, people are starting to recognise they've got a USP that's worth promoting, like the weekends on boats or this Airstream or Mongolia or whatever it might be. It is proving to be an attraction to the high street typical holiday break.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised actually by how few UK operators are here, really. But those that are here, they're doing quite well. But I think you're right. This is, if you look around, there's still quite a lot of value for money to be had.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting to see the number of people here and the sort of age range today at the weekend, which is probably a lot more mature than I was anticipating. But it just goes to indicate who's got the spare cash at the moment.
Yeah, and all those hippies on that bus.
You're listening to the award-winning UK Business Podcaster of the Year. This is the Outdoors Station.
For more information on the Destinations Show and who'll be attending and exhibiting, have a look at the website destinationshow.com. Now, Roman, our German correspondent, was over in Friedrichshafen this year, speaking to Andy Burgess from Golite, and they had some very exciting news regarding the materials being used to make their range of products for 2010. Some new products like the fantastic new Peak Day Weekend Pack, which we've actually just had in, which is brilliant, and the new tents, Arcadia and Eden, plus obviously their normal range of products, well-known products, quilts and tents and so on. And they have been paying attention to manufacturing issues, and their strapline, going lighter on the planet, has now taken a new step because they've been using 100% Tier 1 recycled nylon fabrics in the production. And I believe, and I might be wrong on this, but I believe they might be the first company to be doing this at the moment, using 100% recycled nylon fabrics. So Roman had a word with Andy about the new product range for 2010 and, of course, some more information regarding their use of recycled materials.
Well, two major stories. The first is with the base fabrics. We've upgraded all of the fabrics to a 100% Tier 1 recycled nylon fabric, so something that's not been done before. All of the quality and all of the performance standards of our previous fabrics are found now in this 100% recycled version. The other major upgrade that we've made to the Ultralight series is we've changed the design of the hip belt, taken the hip belt from the perimeter seam of the lumbar area and inserted it down in the middle of the back, slightly closer together, so that we get a much better wrap of the backpack and the center of mass more solidly mimics yours. So you get greater freedom of movement as well as better load transfer. It's a very noticeable comfort improvement when you have weight in the pack.
So when will those new packs be available for the end customer?
Those will be in the market in January of 2010.
And the change of design extends to all of the packs within the Ultralight series?
It extends to the Jam and the Pinnacle, which are models that are currently in the range. We're introducing a new model to that range called the Peak that has a separate adjustable hip belt construction that's slightly lighter weight. It also allows for complete detachment of the waist belt for going super light.
Okay, so how would you place that new pack between the Pinnacle and the Jam?
The new pack, the Peak, is the smallest of the three. It is basically a 20% smaller version of the Jam with a lighter weight suspension.
And in terms of sleeping bags, I've noticed that you also came up by extending or revamping the whole range, but in particularly I'm interested in the new quilts you've come up within the Ultralight series. Can you tell us a little bit more about those two?
Sure. Our Ultralight quilts in 2009 really took us by surprise. They ended up being our best-selling models, and because we had so many people out there using them, we had a lot of requests for an expansion of this range. So what we did was we took the existing model and added more down fill. It's 800 plus fill power, Eastern European source down. We added more to that to make it more robust for colder temperatures, and we introduced a lighter weight model for summer as well as mild spring and fall conditions. So the lightest bag we've ever made.
So that lightest bag and the other one, when will those be available for the end customer?
Same time, January of 2010 is when those sleeping bags will be available.
Last but not least, you also added two new tent models. I remember about 2 years ago when you introduced the Shangri-La series to the show. It was a great success. Now you will add two new tents, the Arcadia series and the Eden series. So what is the story behind those two new tents?
Well, similar to the Ultralights, the Shangri-La series has been very successful for us, and we've had requests for people. We've had requests from people for more fully integrated shelter systems, as opposed to buying a floor and a shelter and a nest independently. They wanted a single package that they could purchase, a more conventional tent. So we applied new materials that we've developed for 2010, 15 denier ultra lightweight, high tenacity nylons, and integrated fly sheets with the bodies. So a single package gives you the full tent ready to go out of the bag. The major difference between the Edens and the Arcadias versus the Shangri-La series is that they have netting bodies and fully taped waterproof fly sheets that you can pitch and strike as an integrated unit. The Arcadias are in fact a separated fly, but you can keep them attached via Velcro. The Edens are an integrated pole sleeve construction that suspends, it both tensions the exterior fly sheet and suspends the inner tent. So we've really focused in these tents, as opposed to just minimizing weight, we've taken these minimalist materials, but built them around larger internal volumes. So they're geared for better internal space at the shoulder height, as opposed to good living space just at night when you're sleeping and reclining.
So for European conditions, the porch size is very important, especially when you go to the UK, it's raining a lot and people tend to cook, even so it's not always advised to do it, but tend to cook inside of the porch or store the gear inside of the porch. So how big is the porch in those within those two series?
Well, on the Arcadias, the vestibule, which is what we call the porch, it is zip off, so there's a separating zipper. The vestibule size adds almost 40% to the shelter itself, so it's enormous. In fact, I've been out with my daughters. They slept in the tent, and I slept in the vestibule because they were thrashing around too much. And I had to curl my legs a little bit, but was fully covered. So on the Arcadias, it's the largest porch we've ever made. With the Edens, we make a one-person and a two-person model, and there's a single vestibule for each occupant. So on the Eden 1, that vestibule adds about 15% of the floor space to external gear storage, and then we double that for the Eden 2 with a vestibule on either side because there are two entrances, one for each occupant.
So, Golite is also very well known for a good, let's say, a relationship between performance and price. So when will those tents be available, and what will be the price point?
Well, they'll be available in January of 2010. Because we have upgraded the materials so much to this 15 denier silicone PU-coated fabric, there has been a price increase. Like anything that's ultra lightweight, the lighter you go to maintain strength, you have to increase the technology that's in it. So the Arcadia 2 will retail for €350, 295 pounds. The Arcadia 3 retails for €425 and 350 pounds. The Edens retail for, in the one-person version, €295 and 250 pounds. And the Eden 2 is €375 and 300 pounds.
And do you have also some information about the weight of the Eden series, 1 and 2?
The Eden 1 weighs 1.5 kilos. With everything included, all of the stakes, all of the stuff sacks, all of the guy lines. And the Eden 2 weighs 2.3 kilos.
Well, that pretty well wraps up the show for today. My thanks to everyone involved in the show: Andy Howell, Andy Burgess, Roman, of course, and also Simon Street from Expression Media. Well, that leads us now to coming up to Christmas time. We're still looking for suggestions for show number 300. We've had quite a few in. At the moment, it's leaning towards me perhaps contacting a handful of people involved in the lightweight industry around the world and seeing where we are sort of 4 or 5 years on from when I first spoke to them when we first started doing the podcasts, which I think would be very interesting, actually, and see what their feelings are with where we are and obviously where we're going. But until next time, folks, do get out more. Remember to take your wet weather gear with you because the weather isn't particularly good at the moment. But whatever you do, stay safe and enjoy yourself. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear more from our extensive free library, please visit the website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
You can now follow The Outdoor Station on Facebook, where we chat about each program we produce, answer questions, and discuss future productions. Why not join us there?
This podcast is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk.